The Baltimore Ravens draft plans might have just been revealed by NFL insider Daniel Jeremiah as he took some time earlier this week to speak to reporters at the NFL Combine, and he had a lot to say about what he believes Jesse Minter and Eric DeCosta will be valuing early in the NFL draft, which is only just less than 8 weeks away. I cannot believe it is creeping up so closely, and I can't wait for it. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel because we will have it covered wall to wall, okay? And my goal, 50,000 subs by the NFL draft. Right now, we're at 45,643. We just need under 4,400 to get there, but good thing is we got about 2 months to do so, okay? Help me out. Subscribe to the channel. Does not cost you a dime. 100% free. Lock us in for daily coverage. All right, the NFL Combine. It's a very, very fun time of the year because along with the Super Bowl, along with the draft itself, it's one of the few times where, like, everybody's kind of together in one building. So you get a ton of scoop from insiders all across the country, and Daniel Jeremiah fits that bill perfectly. Well, he was asked about the Baltimore Ravens, what they might be doing in the draft, and he revealed something that, not going to lie, you guys, I'm pretty excited about.
Yeah, I think big guys, I think defensively, it's just there's such immense pride in that building for how you play defense, and it hasn't been up to their standard. So, when they're at their best, they are big. They're big everywhere. It's not just, they like big DTs or like some big edge-setting guys, but big corners, big linebackers. Like they want to be kind of a bully, and I think they got away from that a little bit. And when there's some finesse players, some speed players that they brought in, I looked at them trying to get back to that tenacity and that style.
Now, personally, I would absolutely love if that was the plan. Get bigger, get stronger, get more aggressive, get tougher, okay? Look, I love Nate Wiggins as much as the next guy. I love Zay Flowers as much as the next guy. Malachi Starks as much as the next guy. But it's time to get some big boys up there on the defensive line. Whether that's at edge, whether that's at defensive tackle, it's time to get some big boys up there at the offensive line. Let's get bigger, Baltimore. It is time to get back to that strategy because that is what helped you dominate the way you dominated back in the early 2000s, okay? Let's get back to the last time this defense was feared with Ray Lewis, with Terrell Suggs, with big dudes, okay? And I think that's exactly why they ended up going with Minter. Because they knew something needed to change defensively. They knew something needed to change and kind of get flipped around when it came to this team's attitude towards adding talent, whether by the draft or in NFL free agency. I'm so tired, I don't know about you guys, but from watching this team in 2025 get absolutely pushed off the ball, just absolutely dominated on both lines of scrimmage. Go back, if you don't believe me, watch the tape from the game against the Detroit Lions. Week 3, Monday Night Football. Okay, if you don't know specifics, I just gave you them right there. Detroit absolutely bullied Baltimore in every sense of the word. And that's why I've been a little bit confused with the mock drafts, if I'm being 100% honest with you. Okay, I know that they don't really mean anything. Okay, I know that they should be taken with a grain of salt because Mel Kiper, Field Yates, Chad Reuter, those guys aren't making the selections come draft day. But they do have a lot of intel that goes into making these picks. And there's been a ton of mock drafts that have the Baltimore Ravens going with a wide receiver. Kiper's done it twice. Mekhi Lemon, Jordan Tyson in his 2 mock drafts. Field Yates did it with his first one. He had them taking Mekhi Lemon. Chad Reuter had him taking Carnell Tate. I've always disagreed. Now, I've said about each one of those guys, if I were making the pick, that's not where I would go. But if it happened, I would not be upset about it because I think those guys are talented. But like Daniel Jeremiah said, I think that there is going to be a focus on adding bigger guys, especially on defense. And Eric DeCosta kind of talked about that. He said, I think if we have a chance to draft a great defensive tackle, of course we will. It is one of the most important positions in football. If you can dominate the line of scrimmage defensively, you will win a Super Bowl. I mean, think about your last 2 Super Bowl winning teams. Think about what the Philadelphia Eagles did to Patrick Mahomes in Super Bowl 59. Was it 59 this last year or 2 years ago? Okay, perfect. 59. Think about what the Seattle Seahawks just did to Drake May and the New England Patriots in Super Bowl 60. That game was won on the line of scrimmage. That game was won on the defensive line. And right now, your defensive line is as confusing as any in football. Nnamdi Madubuike, will he even play? We don't know. Travis Jones, he's a stud. He got paid for a reason. Mike Green, you're kind of hoping for and expecting a year two jump. Davius Robinson, can he stay healthy? Adiza Isaac, can he even play in a single game? Before we have health problems, before we have health question marks in that discussion, let's just have the discussion about him playing a snap in the regular season. And then you look at your free agents, Draymond Jones, Kyle Van Noy. And then you look at one of your rookies from last season, Ananias Peebles, defensive tackle out of Virginia Tech, 6th-round pick. He didn't play really at all. And there were kind of some question marks surrounding that, even some from myself. Okay? So coming up on today's show, say Daniel Jeremiah is right. Say the Baltimore Ravens are going defensive line. I'm going to tell you some targets to look out for in either pick 14 in the first round or middle of the second round where they are picking as well. Before I tell you my list, though, name a defensive line you want the Ravens to draft down below in the comment section. Before we do get to that list, I do have to give a solid word to our great friends, sponsor of today's show, our awesome partners over at Prize Picks. Shoot your shot on Prize Picks and get $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. That's right, Prize Picks is now giving you $50 in lineups when you sign up and play your first $5. Prize Picks makes every dunk, every dime, and every board that much more exciting. So, don't miss this chance to get started on America's #1 sports picks app. Prize Picks is simple to play. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. If you get your picks right, you could cash in. Pick from all your favorite sports. Anything from basketball, baseball, hockey, UFC, soccer, college basketball, tennis, golf, esports, and more. Prize Picks now has early payouts. If your player gets off to a hot start, you can now have the option to cash out those winnings before the game even finishes. Let's look to baseball season, because that is just around the corner, ladies and gentlemen. New screen in Camden Yards, by the way, if you guys haven't seen it on social media. It's massive. Let's get back to the Prize Picks lineup. More on Juan Soto, 37.5 home runs. I'm going to take the less on Paul Skeens, 2.65 ERA. Probably the best pitcher in baseball. And give me the more on Roman Anthony for 20.5 home runs. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Link to this promo is in the comments and description of today's video. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. All right, let's talk about these defensive line targets, and we are going to start with a guy you actually had a formal meeting with, a guy we discussed early on Friday morning. Let's talk about Caleb Banks. Defensive tackle out of the University of Florida. Projected originally to go somewhere in the middle of the second round, but he had a really, really good week at the NFL Combine, and it kind of feels like there might be some teams late in the first that feel like they have veteran defensive linemen, defensive tackles, that they can take that risk on Banks to be a first-round pick because of what they believe he could turn into. Now, he was dealing with injury in 2025. That's why the statistics look the way they do, only 6 tackles in 3 games. But you got to look back to 2024 to really kind of look at the hype. 21 tackles, 7 for loss, 4.5 sacks. That combined with the way that he measured in is the reason for all the excitement and hype around him. Massive hands, massive wingspan, 85.75 inches. That puts him in the top 1% of players measured in the Combine since 1999. That's not just defensive tackles, that's players, okay? Now, my take on Caleb Banks, it's a pretty big risk. I don't think I'm down with that selection, okay? Like, if it comes down to Caleb Banks, maybe you got a wide receiver there as well. Like, I'll just tell you this right now. Caleb Banks is going to be available at 14. I'd pass, though, okay? I really, really would. Unless, like, he just dominates in the pro day and the Baltimore Ravens fall in love with him in his draft meeting. Other than that, man, I'm not too interested. In the first round, if he's still there mid-second, man, I'm not wasting a second. I'm drafting him. Rueben Bain, let's talk about him. Edge rusher out of Miami. We spent a decent bit of time talking about him on Friday morning, and it all came because of his measurements at the scouting combine. Came in at 6'2", 263 pounds, 77 and 4/8 inch wingspan, but it's the arm length at 30 and 7/8 inches, okay? There are only 2 edge rushers since 1999. Shorter arm length than Rueben Bain Jr. And I do think there's a chance that really scares some teams. Now, does that scare them enough to have them fall from 4 to 14? I don't know. I doubt it. But if it does, and he somehow gets to the Baltimore Ravens, I am drafting him without even taking a breath. Okay? What he was able to do at Miami was really unbelievable. If you watched a second of their playoff run, you would notice it. Okay? I promise you, you would. It'd be impossible not to. Okay? 15 and a half tackles, 9.5 sacks this last year, 83 pressures. There's not much more you could want. He's powerful. He's strong. He's big outside of his arms. He's got a high motor. Man, would not waste a second. And honestly, if he falls all the way down to like 10 or 11, I would trade up to go get him in the first round. That's how much I like Rueben Bain. That's how little I care about the arm length, if I'm being 100% honest with you. Okay? I think it's kind of stupid to go back and forth about that. Let's go back to the defensive tackles. We're going to transfer between DTs and edge rushers on this list. Peter Woods, out of Clemson. This is a guy who the Baltimore Ravens also had a formal visit with this week at the NFL Combine. He's projected middle of the first. I wouldn't be surprised to see if over the next month or two he actually kind of falls back to a little bit later in the first round. Peter Woods, to me, this year is last year's Shamar Stewart. A guy who has all the tools, who has a really high ceiling, but just couldn't put it together and didn't really perform. And you guys know how I feel about drafting on projection rather than production. I don't think it makes much sense, okay? Sure, it works every now and then, but it doesn't work far more than it does work. And I had a great friend and coworker, Jack Sperry, say earlier this week, if he was such a good football player, then why wasn't he good at football? And that's kind of the way I feel about Peter Woods, okay? He lost a lot of weight, too. He just gets bullied and pushed around when it comes to stopping the run. And he didn't really rush the passer that well in 2025 either. I'm passing without any hesitation. I would pass on Peter Woods just as quickly as I would turn in the draft card for Rueben Bain Jr. Just not very interesting, okay? Sorry to Peter if he's watching. Keldric Faulk, edge rusher out of Auburn. Keldric Faulk, to me this year, kind of reminds me of last year's James Pierce Jr., okay? So I believe he's going to get picked somewhere around the mid-20s, 23 to 27. I think James Pierce Jr. last year went at 26. Big guy, 6'6", 285 pounds. But the production wasn't really there. But it was because, teams just threw a ton of double teams at him. Now, his production's worse than JPJ's was last year. But this was a guy who, you go all the way back to the beginning of his career at Auburn, you go back to 2024, the dude was a stud. 7 sacks, 45 pressures, 11 tackles for loss. But then you get into this last year when teams kind of started to figure out who to spend their focus on. It's Keldric Faulk. He just got thrown a ton of double teams. Could be interesting. Not my type of edge, though. Again, if you traded back to the mid-20s, I could be, I could be talked into Keldric Faulk there. Could not be talked into him at 14. Last guy we're going to talk about is Kayden McDonald, defensive tackle out of the Ohio State University. A guy who I'm really, really starting to fall in love with the more and more I watch his tape. I mean, he is just a run stopper if there ever was one. Absolute stopgap in the middle of the defensive line, middle of the offensive line. And I do think that that's something that Baltimore needs a lot. Sure, would I like to have an interior defensive lineman that's just elite at rushing the passer? Yeah, that'd be great. I'd rather have one that's really good at stopping the run and can get to the passer from time to time. 65 tackles, 9 tackles for loss, 3 sacks, 10 pressures this past year. Just played a really big role for Ohio State this past season. Sure, their national championship hopes did not last very long, but it's not because of Kayden McDonald, okay? I am really warming up to the idea of getting to 14, not seeing much there you're absolutely in love with, trading back, getting an extra mid-round pick, going to 18 to 20, and then just drafting Kayden McDonald at 20 with a trade back, man, I'd sign up for that right now. That's going to do it for today's show. A little bit of a longer one. Appreciate you guys for sticking it out with us. Make sure you guys go be followed on socials. Make sure you subscribe to the channel as well.